today is going to be, let not your heart be troubled. And our text today is going to be coming from John the 14th chapter. We're going to read verses 1 through 3. And it reads, Jesus speaking, let not your heart be troubled. Ye believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there ye may be also. We're going to focus on verse 1, where Jesus said, let not your heart be troubled. Ye believe in God, believe also in me. Now, Jesus is about to make his ascension, or he's about to go to Calvary to die. And he was about to leave the disciples without his bodily presence. And that concerned them somewhat. And he was trying to bring them some peace and some comfort. And so, as he says to them, let not your heart be troubled. I'm sure they were troubled at the fact that Jesus was leaving them, and they didn't know what was going to happen. When he was with them, he was a comforter to them. Being in their midst, he comforted them. But now he's about to leave. But he says to them, you believe in God, believe also in me. If you trust in God, trust in me. And so, because I am God, I am the Almighty, I am sovereign, I am omnipotent, omniscient, absolute God. So if you believe in God and you trust in God, then trust in me. Have faith in me. Now, so he's saying to them, let not your heart be troubled. Trust in God, trust in me. Now, Jesus was not talking about that organ that pumps the blood through the body. But let us just take a little bit of time and take a look at a heart attack. A heart attack is trouble for the heart. The symptoms are of a heart attack: discomfort, pressure, heaviness, or pain in the chest, arm, or below the breastbone. Discomfort radiating to the back, jaw, throat, or arm. Fullness, indigestion, or choking feeling. May feel like heartburn, sweating, nausea, vomiting, or dizziness. Extreme weakness, anxiety, or shortness of breath. Rapid or irregular heartbeat. So if you're feeling some of these things, then you're probably having a heart attack. But Jesus was not talking about that heart that pumps the blood through your body. He was talking about your place of emotions, your intellect, your spirit, your essence. He was speaking about that. He wasn't talking about that natural heart, but if you are experiencing some of those symptoms, it is recommended that if it lasts longer than 30 minutes, then you need to call 911. But I say call Jesus and then call 911, because you don't know how long it's going to take for them to get to you. They may not make it in time. But Jesus is a very present help. The world is troubled right now. The unknown is before them, and it is frightening and terrifying. The world right now is terrified of what the future may hold for them. We don't know what will happen when it comes to government funding, welfare, housing, Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security. We don't know what's going to happen. But if you have Jesus, then you can be, as he said to his disciples, let not your heart be troubled. If you trust in God, it really doesn't matter about government funding, welfare, housing, Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, because God is our care. God said, if I take care of the little birds, then I'll take care of you. So God has been taking care of me. So it doesn't matter what takes place in the near future, my heart will not be troubled because I believe God. When Paul was out on the ship was being torn apart, and God made him a promise that not a soul on the ship shall be lost. And Paul said, and I believe God. There was trouble. They had not seen the sun or the moon for 14 days, and the ship was being torn apart. But Paul refused to allow his heart to be troubled. He said, I believe God. Now, when Israel as a nation would turn from God and begin to worship idols and to commit spiritual adultery, then by worshiping other gods or idols, God would bring in other nations and would chastise them by taking them into captivity, and many were destroyed. So Psalms 9 and 17 says, the wicked shall be turned into hell, and all the nations that forget God. This nation has forgotten God. And it just may be that what God is doing now is just trying to get their attention and let them know you have turned your back on me, and with the laws that you have made that are totally against my word, you have spat in my face. And so he is probably just trying to get their attention and let them know that I am still God. And so you just can't forget God and kick God to the curb and think that it's going to be okay. And then Proverbs 14 and 34 says, righteousness, America has thrown righteousness out of the window. People don't want to even hear the word righteousness. They don't want to hear the word anything has to do with Bible or heaven or hell. They have become hostile toward God. And so it says, righteousness exalteth a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. If this nation would do what's right, it could enjoy prosperity. Whenever Israel did what was right, God blessed them in their going out, in their coming in the city, in the field. He made them the head and not the tail. He blessed their children. He blessed their cattle. He blessed them above all nations when they were righteous. But when Israel did not obey God, there were consequences. There are keeping kicking God to the curb, there are consequences for that, you know. And God is long suffering, and God will put up with a lot of things for a long time. But when the time comes, when that time for Him to bring judgment or to accountability, then God would do that. So we really have to understand that we just can't keep ignoring God and get away with that. Now, Israel was down in Babylon, and they were crying out. They wanted to be relieved, and their hearts were troubled every day under the bondage and being out of their safe environment, out of their land. And every day they got up and saw where they were, their hearts were troubled, wondering when they would be able to go back to their own homeland. And so they thought that God had forgotten them. And in Isaiah 40 and 27, starting at 27, and it reads, Why sayest thou, O Jacob, and speaketh, O Israel, that my way is hid from the Lord, and my judgment is passed over from my God? That he said, why are you saying that, Israel, that God has forgotten you? He doesn't know where you are. God does not forget anything, and He knows all things. And He goes on to say, Hast thou not known? Hast thou not heard that the everlasting God, the Lord, the creator of the ends of the earth, fainteth not, neither is weary? There is no searching of His understanding. God is an everlasting God. He knows all things. God never gets weary. There is no searching of God's understanding. We cannot understand what God can do, the magnitude of what God can do. The Bible says, It is high, I cannot attain unto it. The time would come that they would be delivered, that they would come out, but it wasn't time yet. But it wasn't because God had lost His strength, His ability. It wasn't even because God had forgotten about them. So, but their hearts were troubled. But in verse 29, it says, He giveth power to the faint. When you feel you can't go any further, God can give you strength. When you think you're about to faint, God can step in there right on time. And to them that have no might, He increases strength. God increases their strength when you feel like that you're done and you don't want to take another step. God will step right in. When you're at your wit's edge, when you feel like you can't take another step, you can't take another day, you can't take another trial, you can't take another pain, God will increase your strength. It said, even the youth shall faint and be weary, and the young men shall utterly fall. But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. You have to wait upon the Lord. God will renew your strength. Alfonso Coble at sbcglobal.net